We're going?
Whoo!
Well, welcome everybody to another episode of Father Knows Something. I don't know everything. I don't claim I'm correct about anything, but I know something. So to all you guys out there, we'll start the show by first saying we have Justin.
Yes.
We have our other co-host, Holly. And we haven't talked about my socks lately, but the lady that I see is very excited about her art in her home, that she's got this guy called Shag. And we went to Palm Desert and we went to the Shag store. And I always like when we have a story on the socks. So
yeah,
this is Shag, a very unique artist who's into mid-century art.
Very good.
So anyways, let's, we got any feedback from other shows, or should we wait and do that at the end and just dive right on in?
We're going to go in, have a nice relaxing, for us, Sunday evening.
Okay, well, I'm going to grab my tea and our hero, Mickey Mouse. Okay.
Mickey Mouse.
Very good socks. You snuck those suckers in.
That's right.
Here we go.
First story is from someone on our Patreon channel.
Okay, so this is a new write-in, or is this an update?
Write-in.
Write-in, okay.
My father is the reason I got addicted to drugs at 13, and it's hard to have this relationship flourish. My mother is very toxic, and my brother and I aren't very close. When I was young, I suffered from horrible panic attacks, and at 13, my father, a neurologist, decided to prescribe me Xanax. I got severely addicted to them, and while I was depressed and suicidal before this, it worsened everything. I was struggling with this addiction for a year, being hospitalized twice after suicide attempts. After the second hospitalization, I kicked the addiction and have been Xanax-free for 5 years. But everything still haunts me. All of the horrible, destructive behavior towards myself and my loved ones, all the stealing and lying to get money, everything. After the second hospitalization, I never touched drugs again other than a lot of weed and occasional drinking. I have now been weed-free for almost a year and a half, and it has made me think about my life and decisions I've made. I absolutely love my father now, and we have an amazing time every time we hang out, and spend a good amount of time together, but not so much anymore after going away to college. I just want to be able to live with the things we both have done and have it grow our relationship more.
Well, I think that having the conversation, building, since she's now getting trust in her father, they have to just help each other, psychologically with this, unless she wants to go to an outside source to get some other professional help, which there's nothing wrong with that. We are very much advocates of people that feel they want to get, someone to help them with some of the way they process information to give that little extra hand.
Aside from professional help, which I think could be very advantageous in this case, what other strategies have you employed just in like day-to-day life to kind of move through some things that may still come into your mind from the past?
Well, I never had that. Well, I can't say I wasn't haunted by addiction. I mean, I certainly had about a 3-month, when I was about 24 with Coke. And I found that it totally took me over until I had a heart palpitation. And then I realized I have to stop cold turkey. And I stopped cold turkey and just walked away from it. But there are certainly times where people will, bring up the conversation of cocaine, or they'll bring up a movie we might watch where they're showing addiction and things. And I get an uncomfortable uneasiness with it. It certainly is there. And when I hear about the word haunting, that's the only thing that haunts me, that gives me anxiety when I'm confronted with it. pretty much anything else in life, I just really, I kind of compartmentalize and take them one, let them out of the compartment one step at a time as I'm going through my day, so I can, deal, especially if I'm being overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
We do get things that overwhelm us, but again, if you take it, put it behind the door in compartments where you can open them one at a time and deal with them one at a time.
Right.
And that allows it to flow down easier than to back up and spill over.
Yeah. I think when things start to stack on top of each other, it gets to a very...
And far as the relationship you now have with your dad, I think it's great. And I think if you have a conversation, and don't use blame, because when you blame somebody, it puts them on the defensive. It doesn't make them where they can accept and go along with it. But you can certainly say how things affected you in your life and how that you're working to come through all this, and that you enjoy building your relationship. And, this is what's going on in my head. The more you're open with your dad, hopefully he will surprise you and be able to grow with it. Because like I said, Morgan and I, or Taylor and I, or my other son and I, we don't all get along, but when we certainly have conversations, we do grow from them on both sides. I grow as well. And this doesn't mean that your dad doesn't have, room to grow. I'm sure he does.
Yeah.
And we find out the older we get, we find out how much more we have to go.
Yeah. Well, I think just simply being at college and not having as much time together does not hinder that. I think you can still find ways to continue a strong relationship and keep building.
I have to tell you, you'd be very surprised how a phone call to your dad and say, "Dad, I just want you to know I'm thinking about you.
Mm-hmm.
And I love you." And you say, "I was thinking about this. Something, struck me, and I thought about you, and it made me smile, and I wanted to share that with you." Let me tell you what that does to that guy's heart. At least with this guy, it blows me away. Taylor has a way of really calling me out of a blue and, delivering some sweet messages.
Yeah, that's good.
He's got that ability. So I know that if you do that with your dad, it's going to reach home.
Yeah.
So and I think we recollect that she was also talking about that she had, had some misbehaviors where she may have even stole stuff from family to go, she was thieving.
Mm-hmm.
And look, you've certainly turned your life around and you've come clean, and I'm sure you've come clean with them. And if you haven't, maybe that will help you release any of that guilt and go forward. Because, as young adults, people aren't surprised by some of the moronic things that our kids do. But we are the first to forgive everybody and go forward, because we know that by the time we're in our 30s and 40s, we look back and go, "Oh God, remember when I did that?" But you're able to that point, make a little more humor about it to try to soften the edge of it.
Yeah.
So, you've done a wonderful job, and I'm really glad. The most impressive thing that I saw is how you got away from the Xanax, and you certainly got away from pot, because most people don't get away from pot. That's just a part of their life from this day forward.
Yeah.
And it's nice to see that you cleaned up your act, and that you find yourself functioning sober is really a far better way to go through life.
For sure.
You certainly will feel and experience more while you're sober than if you were anesthetized.
Yeah.
So, kudos to you. My hats off to you.
Perfect. And also, thank you for being part of our Patreon club.
Oh, yes. And not only that, I want to thank everyone for watching the show. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It turns out we have, I think, 42% subscribers, and about 58% people who view us consistently haven't pressed the button. So no big deal. Press the button. It certainly gives us a little bit better response as far as our media companies and advertisers, and it helps us. So we're glad to be here and help you. And it's like Sam, I hope that you appreciate us enough that we can have you hit that button.
All right, we're moving on.
Okay.
Number 2, this one I like because it's from the perspective of a mom.
I love moms.
It's a little different flavor on this one here.
Okay.
My husband and our 11-year-old daughter have almost a transactional relationship. When she was a toddler and younger child, they were inseparable, best friends, always playing and scheming. Now that she's older and has her own interests, fashion, friends, dance, he claims they have nothing in common and he just doesn't know how to connect anymore. He's still her father, performs fatherly duties, and loves her, but they don't really ever have quality interactions. I realize there may be some of this as she ages naturally, but it breaks my heart. I miss the relationship they used to have, and as someone who never had a great relationship with my own father, I desperately want them to be close. Any advice on how I can influence their relationship?
Morgan doesn't sit on my shoulder anymore and play Where's the Baby? Oh, did I also mention she doesn't call me daddy anymore?
Oh, we got that.
Life moves on and changes. That doesn't mean the relationship changes. Sometimes kids, girls with their mother, girls with their fathers, boys, same thing.
Mm-hmm.
They have to go separate. And how old is the daughter?
11.
Oh my! It's right in that age.
Yeah, it is.
You know, she's preteen. She's typically it's still good here, but I would certainly suggest that he take her and go on a ski trip. I mean, I used to take Morgan skiing every night, and we did that. And then she ran into her girlfriends, and that was the end of me. I mean, I was discarded like not much different.
Yeah.
It's their love for their dad, I think, is always there. The way that they interact with their dads, it just depends on their mood in that day. And I think that he's just got to realize that, she loves him, he loves her, and he can be certainly more creative to spend time together more than she's going to be creative to do that.
Sure.
Remember, he's the parent.
Right.
And they're not losing their love. It's just, it goes down a certain, wave motions.
Yeah.
And she's into her friends right now, and she's in it. But she's now going to be going into Mean Girl. And he's got to be there. And so do you during Mean Girl. Mean Girls is a thing that goes on with these kids when they start in, I think, right around 8th grade in junior high school. Might be 7th grade. And it goes on probably through 9th, 10th, sometimes even 11th grade, where they get very cliquey and they have to show one girl that we can abuse her and bully her. And they flip kind of all over the place to say who's my favorite, in the girls and in our group. And we have to, of course, demoralize somebody else to make ourselves feel better about ourselves. Yeah. Now, this is not something that I really experienced in guy world, but I certainly experienced in girl world with Morgan as she was coming through that age. And dad has got to be there and recognize and even prepare her for some of this, because a lot of kids become suicidal during this period. Mm-hmm. And it's not uncommon for girls to really take it hard. Yeah. So long as you now see this, mom, especially at this point, recognize it, have some conversations, and maybe even, I don't know, Morgan, we didn't, do any, go to a psychologist or a psychiatrist with any of this before it happened, because as a dad, I was totally clueless to this. But I did remember that all of a sudden, a kid who loved to go to school, all of a sudden, she didn't want to go to school.
Right.
And it had a drastic effect on her. So,
well, I've seen it a lot too. I mean, I remember girls in high school that I knew that would go through it. My cousin experienced it. My stepsister is definitely in the heat of it. And it's just like one of those things. And I think no matter who it is, I think the relationship with your parents it's interesting how it evolves, right? Because you're so close as a kid, and it's like your parents are your world. And then you start to kind of find your own lane, and yes, you get your friends and you find your hobbies, and you're leaving the nest, right? And
I think also their changes in their body have a lot to do with this, and their hormones, and
it's all of it.
boys and becoming a woman and all the stuff, and the freakiness what goes on with their their bodies are awkward at this time, and their facial features are awkward at this time, teeth are awkward at this time, everything's awkward, and it's a lot to deal with.
Yeah. Well, and then I think it's interesting too how then later, almost maybe in college or post-college, you kind of have this rekindling where it's, I don't know how to put it, but it's like cool to have a relationship with your parents again.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in high school, you're like embarrassed.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny. It's just funny how it evolves, especially being on the other side of it now. But just some more info for you. The ideal outcome is that my husband would feel more of an emotional connection with all three of our kids, displaying a loving relationship more than just a transactional feeling parenting. He is a good person and I know he loves us. I just wish he was capable/willing to form close connections to our kids.
I don't know what kind of I don't know how the husband and wife's relationship and communication are. This is an interesting thing. How well are you able to communicate with your husband to say, honey, I see this, and let's try to do some things that are going to be more family oriented. I mean, there are so many things about families traveling together and, not separating each other and not dividing each other, but really start taking family projects. And as much as the kids may kick and moan to go do this, once they get there, they find their groove to help each other and become that family unit again. You guys are parents. You're going to have to, do some work to figure out how to involve your kids in your lives, not to disconnect them, but to reconnect them and do these projects together.
Right.
And I think that's an idea. That's what I would do.
Yeah. And it's just like, I think as a parent, there's this fine line of being there for your kids, being very involved, but also not being too involved, right? Because that leads down a whole separate path. So it's just finding the sweet spot. And obviously I haven't been a parent, so I haven't been through that.
No, but you're my competition. Long as you're around, she pays no attention to me. All of a sudden you're gone for a few days, and she says, oh, Dad, let's go do this together. I know I play second fiddle, but it's okay. I mean, dads, and moms realize this stuff, and we know the foundation we gave our kids through those immediate years and introductory years. And if we did our work and we built those foundations, we're okay. They stand by. Look, parenting is done so many different ways by so many different parents.
So how about this? Some additional info. I know my husband wasn't raised with much affection or any real quality relationship with his parents, but he and his dad are very close now. And then going back up, the dad is claiming that he just doesn't know how to connect anymore. So what if we are looking at a lack of effort on the dad's part? What would you suggest to the mom?
To encourage him to go, he's going to have to set his priorities on weekends that, one night a weekend. Or weekends that they're going to either go on camping trips, they're going to go do projects together, they're going to find things to interact, to have experiences. So as this kid gets older, she's going to reflect, or he, whoever the kids are, son or daughter, to reflect on the moments they had doing that project with their dad,
right,
and that relationship. If you deny them the relationship and the experience because you don't know how, it's your kid. It's part of you. Go figure it out.
Yeah.
I don't care if you guys go get 2 shovels and go to the beach and go, make sandcastles.
Yeah.
Do something.
Right.
Or find a hobby to go do together and go do it. I know that Morgan loved horses. So I made horses a part of my Sundays. We would, pack the horse up when she'd go barrel riding.
Yep.
You have to involve yourself. That's part of what it is to go grow these relationships with your kids and show them that.
Yeah. I love that.
Okay.
I like the start of this one.
Okay.
Hello, Jerry and company.
I love it.
I love your podcast and look forward to each new episode. I'm writing in because I'm having some trouble with my mom and was hoping you could help me. I, 26 female, live about 30 minutes away from my parents. I don't get to see my parents that often right now, especially because of my busy schedule and the rising gas prices. I'm trying to save on gas as much as I can. My mom and I have never been extremely close, but we have gotten closer as I've gotten older. When I go to visit her, she is constantly on her phone. It's gotten to the point now where it's starting to hurt my parents' marriage because she just constantly is on her phone. My dad is extremely patient and gentle, and it takes a lot for him to be bothered, but I can tell this is hurting their marriage. It's also affecting my relationship with my mom. I feel like I don't even have a mom sometimes because she doesn't even really talk to me when I'm with her. She just looks at her phone the whole time. I've tried distracting her by asking her to go places with me or watch a movie, but even if we do that, she's on her phone. Is there any advice you can give me about talking to my mom about this in a way that will get through to her, but also not make her too upset? Every time we bring it up, she gets defensive, and I'm kind of at a loss of what to do. Thank you so much.
You know, there are times where your mom, if it is work, can say, you know something, I am going to make an announcement on my phone. During this time and this time, I am out of the office. Please leave your message and I will return the call as I return I'll return back to my office or start returning calls at 7:00 this evening. I mean, there's ways you can define all this stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm going to imagine it's simply telephone abuse. Now, when your mom and dad were dating, she's 27 years old now?
26.
26. Well, when your mom and dad started dating, really cell phones were in their infancy and not everyone in the world was on their phone consistently. And I'm sure your dad really didn't, buy the package of your mom that she would be on the phone 365 and not be able to pay attention.
Right.
She's obviously has found that she can connect easier with her friends and connect with her own husband right now. And she's passing that message on. So she needs to be made aware of it and say, you know, Mom, I'm not going to tell you how to have your life with Dad, but I'm letting you know that standing on the outside and looking in, it ain't looking good. And if it's because you feel that you're disconnected from Dad, maybe guys should work on trying to reconnect. And that you don't have to do this. And as far as that telephone goes, I feel it too. And it would be nice that when I'm going to come out and see you on Tuesday night from, we'll say 4:00 till 8:00, I would really appreciate it that we can have our time together and just put the phone on voicemail. Turn it off. Put it in airplane mode. Pretend you're flying. We're flying to the moon and back for that moment that we're going to have our time.
Right.
Because this is what's happening with this. And I hope that you'll understand it and just try it. I'm not going to ask a lot of you. And I think that is a positive way to try to bring that message. The only other way I know how to do is shut the fucking thing down. Go online and find a way to unplug it.
Sure, but I think that, yes, that's a great first step. The toughest part about this question then is when you're met with the defensive and it flipped on you or you're just met with a wall of defense. Mm-hmm. What's step number 2?
She's got every reason in the world why she can't turn it off, and don't take it so personal, and don't do this and don't do that. And the answer is, Mom, I do. It's simple. I'm not going to argue about this. Mm-hmm. We're not going to debate it. I'm letting you know this is what's happening. And, you pick the day that I can come and have quality time with you, and I'll see if it works out in my schedule that I can do it that day. But I can't keep coming here to go watch you talk on the phone.
Right.
And that's what's happening. And the fact that you're defensive is that you're trying to defend the reality of it, rather than just accept that this is the reality and we have to deal with it. It's just not working for me.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've known people that tend to not be able to get off their phone. It was very prominent back when phones were newer, back in the high school days and everything. Yeah, it's interesting. It's almost like you need a intervention.
Well, another thing that you do is when you're trying to get rid of one bad habit, you try to replace it with something that's going to keep their mind active. you and I and Morgan have come with a wonderful thing that we love to do. We love to break out the Catan board.
True.
And trust me, when we're playing Catan, there's no room for anything else going on in the world.
Yeah.
The world could have a nuclear blast. And after it's gone off, we might decide to put the game away.
Yeah.
We're into it. And
Right.
we have and it's a wonderful way that we interact. So, there are different things that families can do together to interact. Some of these games are great ways to bring people into a different mindset, exercise their mind.
Yeah.
And you're off the phone and you're doing stuff together. Scrabble.
I know.
love it.
Something as simple as a little board game.
It is. So these are just great tools that are out there that are very constructive.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with it. And your brain actually gets exercised by doing them.
Yeah, because our ideal outcome, I just want her to get off of her phone and live her life. I want my mom back.
And I do know they sell, nylon rope and tape. No, we're just kidding.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'm curious on this one. So I'd be curious what happens. And
Write us back. Let us know.
And maybe we can go round 2 on it.
One thing that I love to do sometimes in the evening late is I go back to our YouTube comments and I read them. And I see that a lot of other people chime in with great ideas.
Yeah. Yeah.
And remember, I only know something. I don't know everything. And so we get a lot of comments where people have brilliant ideas.
Yeah.
And so I strongly recommend for everyone to listen to it. If you have an idea that works, write it in. Don't take it for granted. And certainly the people that are writing in, go look.
Yeah, for sure.
Because you'll see some brilliant stuff in there.
Yeah, because people have been through similar things.
Yes. Okay, next one.
Number 4.
Okay.
Big number 4.
Quattro.
4 is actually my favorite number. Or 14. Or 24. Or 44.
Why fours?
I don't know. I've always liked 4.
Okay.
Something even about it.
Was there something great about your 4th birthday?
No. No, like special meaning. Just always, it's innate.
I do know one thing. When you hit 64, there's a song.
Well, 64 is not one of my favorite numbers.
Okay, let's roll. Enough of this.
My mother and father have divorced and are now fighting for financial rights over our family home. My mom wanted to go 50-50 split, so they received equal amounts, but my father had proposed 80-20 his way. I have begged and pleaded with my dad as I believe he is being totally unreasonable and stubborn, but he won't change his mind. I believe he is doing this more to punish my mother than anything. When they decided to split, my mother moved out and my sister and I joined her. My father stayed in the family home for another 4 years to work on the renovations before selling. He kept messing us around, and as he said they would be done within the first year, it took 4 because he kept redoing things around the house that he wasn't happy with, but overall they did not need to be redone. Now he is saying he deserves all this money because he put the most into the house, but all he did was drag on unnecessary things. He said in a statement that my mom had no financial contribution towards the marriage, which is very false, and he is also saying that he cannot work full-time anymore because he is injured from all the work he did on the house. But in reality, he lost his job because he refused to get vaccinated. He has lied in his statement over several things, and it's clear he is trying everything to make sure my mother doesn't get any money. I adore my father, but I become so angry with him, I do not know how to continue my loving father-daughter relationship with him, as he believes the reason I think mom deserves 50% of the funds is because she has brainwashed me. It hurts me that he believes I am so easily manipulated when in reality, I've watched what both my parents have contributed into our lives and their marriage, and my opinion on the matter still stands that they deserve equal amounts in the settlement. I don't know how to go about this. Whenever I tell him how I feel, it goes in one ear and out the other. It seems like he doesn't even realize how much he's hurting us. And overall, if my mom ends up with nothing, we will basically be homeless as mom won't be able to buy a house in our city. Cost of living here is high. I know he wants my sister and I to go live with him, and I believe he's trying to punish us all for going with our mom 4 years ago. He recently told me that he wants to have another child so he can have them around all the time, as my sister and I are now not, and as he lives about an hour away with his mom. I try to see him at least once a week, but my sister has resented him ever since the settlement had started and hasn't seen or spoken to him much at all. My mom and sister both don't want me to speak to him, and I don't know what to do. I love my dad, but I've never been this angry at him. I cannot believe he would do this to the mother of his children. I never realized he was this type of person, and I'm quite hurt and don't know how to continue seeing him the way I used to. What should I do? I can't talk to him about this as he's so stubborn and genuinely will never see my point. I approached him the other day and told him I was sad to hear that's all he was willing to give my mother, and he had the audacity to ask me why I was upset with him.
Well, there's a couple different facts of life here. Fact one, this is between your mom and your dad in the court system. And the court system is way too bright to basically enable some of this abuse.
For sure.
It is true you need to have good counsel on both sides. And I'm sure your mother has counsel, and I'm sure your dad has counsel. I also am going to recognize that the fact that your dad took 4 years to go redo this house, was he living in that house during that 4 years? Was he living in a trailer for those 4 years? Certainly, you guys had to go find housing for that 4 years and pay for it and keep that nut going. And if your dad was living in the house, he owes your mom some money for being in the house, for taking so long. Let's just say he added $100,000 in value to a house by working on it. We don't know if it's 100. We don't know if it's $1 million. We don't know if he put $10,000 in the house in new stuff.
Yeah.
Or if he but things really work that it's 50-50.
Yeah.
It's the way it is. And I can guarantee you he wasn't paying your mom for rental on the house at a rate that is worth compensating. The house goes on the market, divorced. Mm-hmm. It's sold, it's clean, it's done, it's 50-50, and that's the way it goes with community property.
Mm-hmm.
If I was her, I would certainly stay out of the business side of mom and dad. You having issues with dad with just his behavior, that's something you can certainly talk about and say, I'm just not digging this.
Yeah.
And the fact that he wants to have another child that'll be around, I don't know if he's doing this with a surrogate. He's doing it by himself like a snail. I don't know how he plans on doing this. I can guarantee your mom's not going to be an active participant.
Yes.
Since he's so good, since he's been so wonderful with what's going on now in their life.
Right.
So I take it that there's someone else in his life that he's thinking down this path, and his only concern is his life and doing what he wants to do in his own way. So,
True.
Lucky him. I just do believe that the court system itself will stop this shit, and it just depends on what your mom wants to do with a lawyer and how good that lawyer really is.
Yep.
And your father should really not be talking with your mom. Your dad's lawyer, or your dad should be talking to your mom's lawyer.
True.
She should be out of it totally.
Yeah. To the courts.
To the courts. I hope that helps.
I think it does. I think when you get in these situations, especially when you're a child and in between two parents, you can almost start to think that a lot more of it is your burden than actually is.
She said, how old is she? The quick and easy answer is, and I still believe this fully, is keep your relationship with your dad identified to your relationship with your dad. And if he is going to be a piece of shit, then you can say, Dad, I'm just not digging you right now.
Yeah.
And I just don't want to be around you.
Yeah.
And if you can't understand why don't you go reflect on it? And then let me know how you do. We'll see if you come up with the answer. Otherwise, it's okay. I miss you, but I miss the guy that used to be caring for everybody. And I miss the guy that was sweet. I don't miss this guy who's doing this stuff. I don't know who this guy is.
Yeah.
And I think that would be the answer that I might even deliver.
For sure. Okay.
Let's rock and roll.
We're currently recording a Father Knows episode, and I wrote in my notes for this story that we could potentially call you while we read it and get you to have the first take.
Right now?
So I can introduce him, right?
Yeah. Is it a bad time?
No,
Let's do it.
we can do it.
It's not super long, so we'll read it and then we'll get your vibe and then you're good to go.
I guess Justin has got a fun little another story to come up, and to add a little twist to me, he is bringing my eldest son Matthew, who none of you have got to talk to yet.
True.
So we're going to introduce Matthew into Father Knows Something, and it's going to be great to have him on the show. So Matthew, I want to introduce you to the viewership of Father Knows Something, and this is Matthew. Say hi.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, Matt, we need to get you on a full-fledged episode.
I'm ready. Bring me out. Let's go.
All right, here we go. Jumping right in. Okay, my issue is something I've been struggling with for a long time now, and more than anything, I just want to know from someone who has been married if it is a normal feeling. I am currently married with 2 dogs and a cat, no kids. My husband and I have been together 9 years, married for almost 6. While I love my husband, and he is a wonderful man, I can't help but notice I don't feel any type of romantic love towards him. I know many people say that this is normal per se, but I'm having a hard time accepting that and often feel like something is missing. I've been doing a lot of introspection and feel that I am just now coming to terms with the fact that I lost those feelings for him long before we got married. What makes this even harder is how amazing he is to me and how much he does for our family. At the same time, I am worried that I missed out on a chance to explore and learn about myself as we got together when I was 20 and we will be turning 30 soon. I've never lived alone either, as I moved from living with my mom to moving in with my husband. I suppose my ideal outcome would be clarity, and if these feelings are just something I should accept as they are expected, or if it's unfair to stay with my husband since I don't reciprocate the feelings he has towards me.
Ouch. That's going to come down to, one, how do you want to live your life?
Yeah.
Like, being comfortable is one thing, but if you're sitting there questioning and you are just not happy, figure out how to make it happen, or she needs to move on from what it sounds like. I just think that once you become so comfortable in a relationship, and you got to ask yourself, like, what are you living for? What do you want to get out of the relationship? And if you're not getting what you need out of that relationship, it's time to move on.
Right, because essentially what we're calling you for is basically losing romantic love is not a normal part of a marriage.
I don't know if that's... I think...
No, I guess what I'll say to that aspect is there are ebbs and flows when you want to be romantic or you're not getting along, or you're fighting. But at the end of the day, I do agree with you in that, like, you need to have at least some part romantic,
Yeah.
or be romantic or have that romantic feeling. And look, there's a lot of people that live out there without that, right? And they just go through it, and they go through the motions, or they decided that what they wanted from that relationship isn't romantic. Now, if the other partner, wants that, then you have to accept that, hey, I'm going to have to do some romantic things. And if both parties, both individuals are comfortable with that, then you're being satisfied. But I guess what a horrible way to live.
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
Yeah.
I agree. It would be interesting to know if there is some, when they first met, in their passion they had when they were first together for the first couple of years before it really did go away, because after you get into a routine or a rut, sometimes it's hard to find that spark. And I didn't know that if there are some therapists, some couple therapy that give tools that you guys can, that this couple can do to go out and explore and investigate outside in the world, that would also wake up those feelings again, like they were dating once again. When you go through raising children, trust me, I've done it. I know what it is. But I
understand. You get into different phases. So some people call it the roommate phase. You're busy with kids and you get home, it's late at night. It's 9, 10 o'clock at night every night of the week. And
That's
you're just not going to get there. But yeah, I think that there is something out there. Maybe it's therapy that can, that romantic side back.
I have one more piece of
tons
info.
Of stuff out there to try.
So I do have one more piece of info. A few years ago, at the beginning of COVID, I did my best to express all of this to my husband. And after we talked, I agreed to try therapy. We've now been in therapy regularly for 2 years, and I still can't help but wonder if there is something missing, or if this is really what a safe, secure relationship feels like. On top of that, I have been scared to try to venture out on my own, as I am currently self-employed and my husband is the main breadwinner. So supporting myself would be incredibly difficult.
That goes along with the idea that if she wants to be on her own, that's what it is to be on her own. She can't be with her husband because it's secure. That's not fair to him. I mean, I think it'd be really interesting as a test to separate for a while and to see how much he really means to her and how much she misses him. And if that shakes it up, if nothing else has worked, but there's got to be some movement in this relationship one way or the other way, because she has definitely come to the conclusion she is sacrificing, she is settling. And
she is only staying in that relationship due to comfort, because it's easy, it works. It's hard to break out of that rut. And I would like, does OP ever talk about, and I might have missed it, how old they were when they got together?
They got together when they were 20.
20. I just think that, it's my opinion, there's a lot of people out there that make it work, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you're in a relationship at such a young age and you don't go out there and try different things and explore and figure out exactly what you want. There's a lot of growth that happens between 20 and 26, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it seems like she just missed out, and she's wondering what she missed out on.
Yeah, I've experienced that. I've seen friends experience that, where someone gets, you start to have a lot of what ifs. And I've had friends that even say, I don't even want to date anyone that's under 25, 26, just
mm-hmm.
because I think everyone needs to go through that kind of explorative and just that free world phase, where you're figuring it all out. Otherwise, you go forward with all these what ifs, and that actually becomes, I think, probably the biggest part of this write-in.
Yeah. I can say that my wife and I, we got together when we were really young. We did the on-again, off-again thing for a while. We took our time apart to go and figure out life and solve those what ifs, and ultimately it worked out at the end of the day. We got back together and it's been great. But yeah, this story is very relatable.
Yeah.
And I know that with me. I was seeing someone at the age of 19 to 24, and I knew that I was becoming getting those what ifs, and I said I broke up with her. And now, I as you get older and reflect, and we never got back together,
mm-hmm.
but I reflect saying, if I didn't break up with her, I would have married her, I would have cheated on her, we probably would have ended up getting divorced. And that would have been awful. But at the end of the day, it wouldn't have been bad if we made it through it, because now that I'm way past that time, and as we're still friends, and I look and I talk to her, I go, we could have made that relationship work, because,
yeah,
of whatever that bond was at that time. Now, now it's years later, but it's interesting that I could say, maybe I made that mistake back in that day. Maybe she was the one that got away. But at the time, there was nothing, there was no signal that was saying she was the one that got away. It was the one that I had to get away from.
Yeah. Timing. It's all timing.
It's all timing.
Well,
yeah.
Well, all right, Matt, thank you for jumping in. I think you highlighted one of the biggest aspects of this one.
And guys,
awesome guys. And
I'm really glad you all got to enjoy Matthew, and we'll get him on. I think we're going to have a show in a few weeks back in Minnesota. And hopefully we'll get Matthew on the camera so you can meet my maybe I can get both sons on.
That's true. Hey, Matt, you want to give a quick Finding Fire plug?
Is really interested in entrepreneurship or looking how to get away from your 9 to 5. I run a podcast called The Finding Fire. It is available on Spotify, Apple, and wherever you find your podcasts.
As he broke up, I think he was trying to say the podcast is called Finding Fire.
Yeah, and actually, me and Morgan have both been on this show. So if you want some familiar faces in a whole different light, then links and everything will be in the description. So thank you, Matt. It was fun to have you on virtually, and next time we'll have you on in person.
Talk to you later, son.
That sounds awesome. Have a great night, everyone.
Bye. All right. So now does that wrap up our show?
So,
So, all right. So that's it for show number 31. And we got to sneak Matt in, which is another little, character in our cast. And we're going to now do a Patreon. So we're going to say goodnight to you for tonight, and we'll see you next week. And thanks for tuning in. And don't forget to subscribe.
There you go. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.